The idea is to explore and present the history of humankind's relationship with the horse. Until mechanization, the horse was ubiquitous and deeply enmeshed in our lives and society. Our machines, of course, have replaced their role in our daily lives. Everything done today by cars, trucks, and tractors was once accomplished by horses. Their use in warfare has been replaced by personnel carriers and tanks. They were status symbols and a place to store wealth. Of course, if you owned horses in the past, they lived with you as well. Their care and welfare were crucial to your existence, so a certain amount of one's day would be used in service to the horse's well-being. Villages and towns would have been populated with people in the business ancillary to horse care and use, farriers, buggy makers, saddle makers, and the like. Our symbiotic relationship with each partner in strong dependence on the other. I was captivated by interacting with horses from the very outset of my introduction to them. It was in the later 1960s that my mother got me a job feeding and cleaning stalls at the farm, which she and my sister boarded, the inimitable Oak Brook Sports Corps in suburban Chicago. That was some 55 years ago, and it was there I was first introduced to horses and horse culture. I was a 15-year-old male bored with my life until I got that first thrill of getting on the back of a horse and just going fast in open country. Of course, conversation swirled around horse topics, feeding, showing, training. The other kids were show riders, and I was just beginning. But we all rode school horses when they weren't working bareback and in halters. We rode all over Oak Brook on trails, and in the winter played tag over jumps in the indoor ring. That experience led me to the decision that I wanted to ride forever and do nothing but ride. I've been a professional horse trainer for most of the last 50 years. I had a couple-year formal riding and stable management education at a BHS run school in suburban Washington, D.C. Potomac Horse Center. There, I started to gain an appreciation for dressage, a training system originally based in the history of war horse training but had developed over the centuries to more of a dance than a fight. We've seen in the earlier videos in this series that some of our tools and methods in warhorse training were pretty tough as they required immediate responses from the horse. I'm sure we've seen images in painting and sculpture of horsemen of Middle Ages and even the early modern period, with the foot-long spurs and the foot-long shanks of the curb bits. We were and are following horse training's evolution into the dressage of the Royal European courts of the early modern period. My own riding persona had a similar evolution to the horsemen of the earlier centuries. I was not fighting, but I loved the horse's power and speed. I loved galloping across country, jumping cross-country jumps, chasing herds of deer while stationed with the army in Oklahoma. Anything that would get me out in the open country and get my heart pumping. The speed connected us, horse and rider. We would both breathe hard, and in a gallop, all you feel is the power, the wind rushing by, the shoulders pulsing under my knees, and the power of the back legs launching us into airborne suspension. As time passed, the thrilling sensation I got from riding out and fast, running and jumping, became embodied in precision and in perfecting balance and harmony between horse and rider. Ultimately, that's what this series of videos is about. Horse training history through the millennia and horse training as an individual trainer. As my career progressed, I had accumulated knowledge and experience in 3-day eventing, dressage, hunters, jumpers, and hunt seat equitation. I greatly enjoyed each of these fields and tried to find or create a common thread of training horses and students in the dressage methods of the Western European tradition. I'm still looking for that thread connecting the first horseman to us, the modern 21st century horsemen, our tribe, if you will. Since I couldn't know the future, I would travel into the past to discover methods and systems and exercises which trainers in their time and tradition used to solve the sort of training problems that I was encountering in my daily work. This ceaseless travel from present to past and present again made me very interested in that past. There was a long period of time 30,000 years between this early representation of a horse carved into mammoth ivory and the first proven domestication of the horse by the Botai or Yamnaya peoples, as we discussed before. Of course, it was prehistory, so we don't know if domestication had occurred before this point in time. We also know from the thousands of images of animals created that our ancestors were keen observers of animals and their behavior. Vogelherd horse, created 35,000 years ago, is a perfect representation. Who would not recognize it as a horse? Who would not see it as beautiful? They had been watching them for generations. They knew enough about their postures and actions, facial expressions well enough to go deep in a cave and carve or draw them from memory. They must have gradually gotten closer and closer, maybe figured out what some curious horse would get close enough to eat out of their hand. Who was the first person who dared to climb on a horse's back and ride it? Some human did it. Went from that place of observation that we see portrayed on cave walls more than 35,000 years old to getting close enough to touch and gain trust and finally swing aboard. That moment changed humanity forever. We could now travel faster than our own 2 feet would carry us, and we had a new tool for hunting, warfare, and transportation. We had a new companion to share life with. I often wonder how those early riders were similar to me, a tribe member, but a modern horse trainer. We both spend our days caring for, training, and utilizing horses. Aside from our modern machines and tools, the relationship between people and horses that work together is still very much the same as it was through time. We still live in a culture dominated by the relationship to the horse. My life as an active horse trainer is slowing down. I want to spend time exploring the chain linking all of us in the horse-human continuum together. I believe that by understanding our shared history, we can better understand our relationship with horses today. I've always enjoyed images, figurative art, mainly paintings and sculpture. Man has enjoyed creating figurative art for a very long time, so I thought that would be a good place to start the search for a connection to our past horsemen. Through art, we can gain an appreciation of how humans have enjoyed the beauty of horses, and our art reflects the centrality of place that horses have held in human society. The story of the horse in art is a massive one, with images of horses being portrayed for over 35,000 years. Prehistoric cave paintings are some of the earliest examples of human communication and graphic art. The paintings mainly depict animals. Of course, this was a different time in our history and the history of Earth. We live in an age and time where human activity dominates Earth in certain ways. The artists we are considering were closer to being meat than rulers of the Anthropocene as we are today. Animal life was both dominate and quite dangerous. As a result, Paleolithic peoples were close observers. They depict a variety of animals that filled their days, many now extinct. Cave bears, large cats, woolly mammoths, and woolly rhinoceros, aurochs, not to mention megaloporus. Students being trained to write are told to write what you know. Our upper Paleolithic ancestors did just that in their imaging. They lived in an ice age, but were not living, as we might imagine, in a desperate daily struggle for existence. They lived in cave openings and under rock overhangs. They didn't live in a location all year, but would follow seasonal patterns of animal movement and plant availability, and return to previous locations at the appropriate time. They could look out over the river valley below and watch the various animals that they portrayed live their lives. They were able to hunt and gather in sufficient quantity to have leisure time. They were shown to have lived in sort of neighborhoods of nearby caves and rock shelters, decorating outdoor and indoor living spaces. In one part of France, the living spaces went along the river valley for miles, connected like suburban subdivisions. Although there are examples of cave art, symbols, and a few representations of animals and human handprints in earlier times, the Upper Paleolithic, around 30,000 years ago to 3,500 years ago, had an Italian Renaissance type of creative explosion in which hundreds of caves were adorned with images across Europe from Spain to Russia and India to Malaysia. It's around this time that we are first able to identify our ancestors, displaying behavioral modernity that we recognize. The cognitive traits that drive human culture to this day: abstract thinking, planning, symbolic behavior, music, and dance. Of course, this presentation is about horses and their history with us, the story of the culture of the horse. I just want to point out that the horse was not only represented in Paleolithic art, but represented more than any other animal. In fact, for every 4 animals drawn upon the cave wall in Stone Age France and Spain, at least one is bound to be a horse. Usually larger than all the others, this powerful animal will often feature above lions, rhinos, mammoths, bison, and bears. A huge panel of horses, which is surrounded by smaller images of bison in Pechmerle Cave. The cave at Rufenac is known as the Cave of the Mammoths, and some beautiful images of them can be found. There are more images of mammoths and ibex and rhinos than horses, but the dominant figure in the large dome of the Great Ceiling is the horse portrayed in a 2.7-meter long panel. We don't really know why the horse predominated in images. We don't really know why images of humans are so rare. The caves were not typically residences, so the images had a more communal or spiritual purpose than decoration. Horses at the time were an important prey animal, a major source of food, hide, and bone used for clothing, shelter, and tools. Then as now, horses are impressive animals to behold, powerful and majestic. They are often portrayed as if in motion, heads held high as a way of capturing their power and vitality. Drawing an animal with perfect proportions on the wall or ceiling of a cave is quite the feat, and the images of horses are particularly accurate in form, dimensions, and situation. Of course, these images were created over a period of 20,000 years and are not from a cohesive group of people with a defined meaning of things. What meant one thing to one artist could have meant something else to another. Paintings could be spiritual or graffiti. They range from what looked to be like individual horses that the artist had seen, and on the other side of the scale, more like memes without the characteristics of an individual horse, but represent horses writ large. As in all times, not everyone that wants to sing a song is Pavarotti, and not all people wanting to paint is Michelangelo. Some representations are superb in their artistry, and some are basic. The desire of what the artist wants to convey vary. One wants to demonstrate that he can draw a horse with minimal number of strokes, while another may want to show incredible detail. We get the full range of variety from their time as we do from all times. Leonardo da Vinci famously conducted deep anatomical studies as he worked on perfecting statues and paintings. We have to remember that the Ice Age painters did more than observe horses in their natural setting, but hunted and slaughtered horses for both meat and skins. They knew how the object of their art looked from the inside out. One last image of horses from more than 30,000 years ago: the incredible horses panel from the Chauvet Pont d'Arc cave in France. The wall had the top layer of rock scraped off so it would create a whiter and even background to highlight the art. There are several animals present: aurochs, rhinos fighting, but the horses really stand out. I can't imagine it. A dark cave. From memory, these drawings show real horses, as real as the photograph used in an advertisement for Thomas and Talbot estate properties in Middleburg, Virginia. I assumed they commissioned the photograph sometime in the 21st century. Same subject, same pose, 34,000 years apart.